Yeah, I think it's the first time since I've been here that I'm pretty angry at our football team, and
Coach, is it disappointing when you have, Savion Jones kind of really rose up, Aaron Anderson, John Emery, they kind of put you in position? Is it disappointing when those guys perform and you don't get a victory?
hell yes, hell yes. I mean, and that's what I said to the team. I said we had some.
Can't stop, addicted to the shindig. Chop top, it says I'm gonna win big. Choose not to like.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the era with Brian Gregory. This is the 500 subscriber special. I'm so incredibly grateful for that. I wanted to put on a great show for y'all today to commemorate you all for your contributions and your continued support for this channel and the vision that I have for it. I set this goal back in June. I remember I was sitting on my couch here in Dallas, and I thought that I was absolutely insane for setting this goal. I didn't think that I'd be able to attain it. I didn't think that I'd be able to achieve it. Like I set the number at 500 subscribers. I'm like, yeah, right. Let's see if we can hit that by August 31st. Sure enough, I did. And it was believing in the unseen. Like it was something that's supernatural, something that only God could provide. And for that, I'm so incredibly appreciative. 500 subscribers before the kickoff of the season. Now, we're at 514, and we're growing by the day. We're growing by the day. The velocity of this channel is very noticeable. And it's all because of contributors and consistent followers like y'all every week showing up for these shows, watching me, supporting me, interacting. I can't express my gratitude enough. And I want to give a special shout out to my Uncle Phil Tram. He's a real one. He was the 500th subscriber. I don't know what took him 499 different subscribers to get there, but he was the 500th subscriber. So thank you to Phil Tram, Uncle Phil, the one and only, the OG, for being that 500th subscriber. But there's a lot of exciting stuff coming for y'all. We've got live shows coming. We've got exciting announcements coming up in the near future. And we have a big college football season that lies ahead of us. I'm going to be trying a lot of different cool things. There's going to be merch rolling out here soon, too. I'm working on that. As soon as I get the heads up on that, I'll let y'all know, and that's going to be available. But merch is coming very, very soon. I'm going to take a little swig of water here, and we'll get started. Gotta get ready. All right. We got a lot to unpack from this past weekend. This was what I would say the most eye-opening weekend of college football that I've seen in a while. There's a lot of truths that were presented to us that have to be digested. And it starts with that USC-LSU game. So I've got to credit USC. They had a solid performance last night. Offensively, they were clicking. Miller Moss is amazing. And you think about replacing somebody like Caleb Williams and how lofty that is and the standard that Caleb Williams set at USC. And you're Miller Moss, and you're the guy that has to supplant that. You're the guy that has to be inserted in that spot that Caleb Williams was just in. Well, you know what? He took it. He ran with it, and he maximized it. He was the guy last night. His accuracy is unbelievable. Their offense looks amazing. USC's defense looks exponentially better. And I'm not going to say too much about USC because I'm actually currently working on a video about USC right now, so I'm not going to say too much. I'm going to talk a little bit more about LSU. LSU is 0-3 in season openers with Brian Kelly. And I'm not going to use this as a Brian Kelly bashing clip. That's not what I'm here for. I think Brian Kelly is an excellent coach, and there's a lot of evidence to prove that. What I am going to show you is Brian Kelly's press conference from last night. Let me get that up right here.
Guys played their butts off tonight, and we're sitting here again. We're sitting here again talking about the same things. About not finishing when you have an opponent in a position to put them away. But what we're doing on the sideline is feeling like the game's over. And
that's an angry man. That's an angry man. Those practices for LSU this week, they're going to suck. And I remember when I was working with the Alabama football team when you'd have those practices where like the focus level's down, the intensity's down, and you've got these coaches hiking your ass, man. It's gonna be insane. And coming off of a loss like LSU just had to USC, that coaching staff is going to be ruthless. They're going to be relentless. Those practices are going to be brutal in the Louisiana Heat this week. I would not want to be one of those LSU football players because that coaching staff is going to work their ass. You best believe that. LSU in the first half of this game, they looked very unprepared. They looked like a deer in the headlights. They looked very sloppy. And it took a while to get into a rhythm, both offensively and defensively. LSU had 10 penalties yesterday, and some in some very crucial times. And so that is eye-opening for LSU. That's something I think I have to button up as the weeks go on. Brian Kelly's a fantastic coach. He's going to get this together. There's this narrative out there that Brian Kelly isn't good in big games, that he's a fake good coach. Brian Kelly is fantastic. He's your CEO type coach. He knows how to market the brands. He knows how to present this football team in the most eloquent way possible, and he knows how to prepare them for big games and for big spots. LSU beat Alabama 2 years ago. They played in an SEC championship. They're no stranger to that, and so best believe they're gonna get this together. LSU always starts slow and then they gain momentum as the season goes on. But this was definitely an eye opener for the Tigers moving forward. This was an even game. I mean, the point spread was 2.5 going into it, so this really could have gone either way. The biggest surprise was the over/under. I mean, if you bet the under last night, you were a rich man because the over/under was set at like 64, and there are only 47 points scored in this game. So if you bet the under, congratulations, you're a genius. I wish I had that intuition to make that kind of a bet last night. All right, Georgia versus Clemson. We're going to talk about this game for a few minutes. So, Georgia, they look just as complete. They look just as talented. And they look just as ferocious as they always do. It took a little while for Georgia to get the Pistons pumping. Like I was on the phone with Zeke in the second half of that, or the first half of that game, the second quarter, and I was like, all right, what the hell's going on with this Georgia offense? You know, when are they going to pick up? And then Carson Beck and his supporting cast, they started to really get into a rhythm. They started to get it going, and they pummeled Clemson in the second half of this game. But Georgia, the tenacity that they have, the physicality that they have, that's going to be tough to match week in, week out. This team looks just as good as they always do. They look looking just as dominant as they always do. Now there's this narrative about off-season distractions being a thing for Georgia with, you know, the arrests that were made, Travis Etienne not playing in this game, or forgive me, Trevor Etienne not playing in this game. Like there were question marks about that, but Georgia, just like any great team, they know how to compartmentalize adversity and still maintain a steady focus on the goal at hand. They showed that again on Saturday, and this is a championship caliber team as always. No surprises when it comes to the Bulldogs, and honestly, no surprises when it comes to Clemson. I was expecting this to be a more competitive game overall. The fact that Georgia took their foot and put up Clemson's ass in the way that they did, that was surprising to me. Clemson's offense looked anemic. They could not move the ball whatsoever. They had less than 200 yards total on offense. Not passing, total on offense. And so, what this outcome leads me to believe is that Dabo Swinney and Clemson have to really start to dig into and embrace the transfer portal more, or this team is going to fall out of relevance, and that's just the truth. I mean, it's to the point now to where they're becoming less and less competitive with their peers every year because they don't embrace the transfer portal. They don't embrace NIL. They don't believe it's part of their game. They think that they're going to funnel and develop all their talents from high school. And yes, that's how it was done in the good old days when I grew up watching college football in the 2000s, the 2010s. Those beautiful days. I do miss them very much, don't get me wrong. But that's how it was done back then. It's not the same now. You have to adapt, or you have to get out of the way. You have to hand the reins over to somebody else. And I love Dabo Swinney. He's had an incredible impact on the game of college football. He's had an incredible impact on the Clemson football program. And I respect and appreciate him for everything that he's done. But at this point right now, refusing to embrace the transfer portal, refusing to embrace NIL is crippling this program. And they're going to continue to fall further and further and further out of the limelight for that reason. You know, I look at teams like Miami, who I'm going to talk about in a minute. I look at even teams like Georgia Tech, or even NC State. They look better than Clemson right now. And we would have never had that conversation several years ago. They look better than Clemson right now. And it's because Clemson falls further and further and further into the ether because they don't embrace NIL. There's few coaches in college football that are less galvanizing less motivating, more effective at their job than Dabo Sweeney. He's an amazing coach, but that's one component he has to get together. And he either will, or it's going to be time to have a transition in Clemson, and that's I hate to say it, but that's what it's going to be. Miami versus Florida. This is one of the most surprising outcomes of the weekend. If you told me Miami was going to hang 41 points on Florida in that environment against that defense, I would have thought you were out of your mind. This is another game going into it. Point spread, -2.5 in Miami's favor. Far exceeded that. Cam Ward, he gets the Oh My Heavens award of the week. That guy is an absolute stud. His release is unbelievable. His accuracy is unreal. And he went 26 for 35, 385 yards. Miami has an SEC caliber roster. We've been saying that for a while, and there's this notion, there's this preconception that people have with Miami, because everybody always says, oh, this is the year, that you become numb to after a while. It's kind of the Texas effect, if you will. But like Texas last year, Miami actually has it together. They have the personnel in both offense and defense, but more importantly, they have the quarterback. College football is not that different than the NFL from the standpoint that if you have a star quarterback, you're going to be able to do things on offense that you weren't able to do before. It's going to expand your creativity. It's going to expand your playbook. You're going to be able to do more things on offense, and you're going to be able to compete in games that you weren't able to compete before. You're going to be able to beat teams that you weren't able to beat before because you have a quarterback. You saw it with Texas last year, having Quinn Ewers healthy for most of the year last year. You have one of the best quarterbacks in college football. You're going to go to places that you haven't been in past years because Texas hadn't had that at quarterback. Sam Ehlinger was up there, but they hadn't had a Quinn Ewers yet. And now that they have, they're a totally different team. They have Arch Manning way to go in that pipeline too. Cam Ward puts Miami in a position that they were not in before, and you saw a much different version of Miami than we've seen in past years on Saturday because of that. Florida. This is my second biggest surprise of the weekend. And just to illustrate, just to establish, I didn't have any grandiose expectations for Florida. Their over-under win total is 4.5. I didn't think they're going to be anything spectacular this year, but I did not foresee a loss like they had on Saturday coming. That was absolutely eye-opening. I was left flabbergasted after that game. And it was all elements combined. I mean, even the swamp wasn't as intimidating as it always is. It wasn't as loud as it always is. Cam Ward, Miami players commented. They're like, our simulated practices were louder than this. Our practices where we pumped noise in were louder than this. Cam Ward said, Oregon, USC were louder than this. And Miami faithful traveled. And I have to give them credit for that. The Miami faithful really traveled. And they took up a good portion of Ben Hill Griffin Stadium on Saturday. But I was shocked by that. Florida looked disheveled. They looked unprepared. Graham Mertz did not take the jump that I was expecting him to. I had a lot of confidence. I had a lot of faith in Graham Mertz. He did not take the jump that I was expecting him to. They looked very clunky offensively, and they got worn down very easily defensively. So Florida has a lot of hard truths to embrace. There's a lot of hard truths to admit for this team. And you look at their schedule ahead. That November is absolutely daunting. I think this team realistically goes between 4 and 6 wins, and it's not great news for Billy Napier because it could end up being his job. And I like I've said before, I hate seeing that happen to somebody. I don't want to see anybody get fired. Job security. I am an advocate of job security. I like to see people retain their jobs, but if Florida's going to have this outcome that I'm expecting to have this year, He's not going to retain it, and I hate seeing that. Very eye-opening stuff for the Gators. All right. This one. You want to throw a game? They got my Pistons pumping. This is one right here. Texas A&M and Notre Dame. So, as you all know, I got the Miami and the Georgia game right. I picked Miami to win by a lot closer of a margin than it was, but I picked Miami to win, and they did. I picked Georgia to beat Clemson by a lot closer of a margin than it actually was, but Georgia won. I picked Texas A&M to beat Notre Dame. A lot of people in this great nation picked Texas A&M to beat Notre Dame. Yeah, most of College Game Day did. Most analysts you looked at picked Texas A&M to beat Notre Dame. Well, that didn't happen. Notre Dame won in College Station at Kyle Fields, 23-13. The crowd was not nearly as much of a factor as I thought it was going to be. Kind of like the Florida game. That really surprised me. And ultimately, I have to recalibrate my expectations of Texas A&M, because I thought that Texas A&M was the ultimate dark horse team this year. They have, like I talked about in my video about them, they had the 4th highest blue chip ratio going into this year. That means that from a roster standpoint, they have the 4th highest chance to win a national championship. And so I did not see that at all on Saturday. And a big part of it is Connor Wegman. I thought Connor Wegman and Mike Elko were going to be a fantastic quarterback-coach duo. I thought you were going to see that dynamic partnership really emerge in this Notre Dame game. Connor Wegman made a lot of bad mental errors and bad misreads that I just did not expect him to make. Like, my jaw was dropped. Like, I had no words. I have to completely recalibrate my expectations. I think this is a 7-5 or an 8-7 Texas A&M football team. I thought this team had the potential to be a 9 or 10 win team, chasing a college football playoff spot by the end of the year. And after what I saw on Saturday, I cannot foresee that happening whatsoever. They only scored 13 points. They're 4 for 13 on third down. Offense was just anemic. It was slow. It was clunky. I'm absolutely disheveled by what I saw of Texas A&M on Saturday. And it was Mike Elko's first game, so you have to give them grace from that standpoint. But still, Mike Elko is an offensive-minded head coach, and Connor Wegman, to me, is somebody who has a lot of potential. He almost had 1,000 yards through 4 games last year, but I was flabbergasted by what I saw on Saturday. Defense looked effective. They had Notre Dame very confused for a lot of the game. Defense was effective, but offensively, Texas A&M has got to improve a lot, and I've got to really recalibrate my expectations on them. And Notre Dame, I've got to really commend Marcus Freeman's leadership and his coaching at Notre Dame. When Notre Dame first hired him, he's replacing somebody like Brian Kelly, who I think is a fantastic coach. So those are big shoes to fill. That's a lot of pressure. But kind of like a Kalen DeBoer, alpha males like Marcus Freeman are not going to turn something like that down. They're going to embrace a role like that and take it on with full head of steam. And that's exactly what Marcus Freeman did. He has a presence as a head coach. Like, you know, there's some guys out there that have a presence. Marcus Freeman is one of them. More importantly, it's the preparedness of Notre Dame going into big games that I think may even be better than they were during the Brian Kelly era, and the versatility of Notre Dame. They can compete and win in most games that they're in. You saw it with the Ohio State game last year. They took one of the best teams in the nation down to the final play. It took a magical game-winning drive out of Ohio State to beat Notre Dame last year. Notre Dame absolutely throttled USC last year. They keep on putting together these 9 and 10 win seasons that a lot of people did not foresee with Marcus Freeman as their head coach. It's kind of like an Oklahoma situation. A lot of people expected Notre Dame to kind of fall off after losing Brian Kelly, just like they expected Oklahoma to kind of fall off after losing Lincoln Riley. That has not been the case whatsoever. this Notre Dame team can beat you in a lot of different ways. They're very adaptable. They can beat you in a shootout. They can beat you in a knockdown dragout. They can beat you in a low-scoring game. They can beat you in a sloppy game. They can beat you in a weather game. They can beat you in a dome. And that's the kind of identity that's going to propel a team to the college football playoff. You know, if I at any point retool this bracket that I make, that's a team that I would include. One of my loyal followers on here, Ryan Kilgallen, he called me out for not including his Notre Dame Fighting Irish in the bracket. I also heard from John Murphy about that, another avid Notre Dame fan. And I have to say, like, as the season goes on and looking at their schedule, I not expect Notre Dame to win this game. You could very well see them slip in to that 12-team bracket, especially being an independent. You know, as the season goes on, we're going to see how Notre Dame competes and how they continue to grow and flourish as a team. But that's one that I just left out of my bracket that I really considered. I just left Notre Dame out. I just left A&M out. I'm leaving A&M out. Notre Dame, you know, let's see how this improves. And you can't completely write A&M off either. You can't completely write them off. There's a lot of talent there, but offensively, they have to improve. They really, really have to improve. All right. Let's talk just a few other games. There are a lot of cupcake games this weekend, and I'm not a big fan of those because they don't prove much. They don't solidify much. And for that reason, like, they're just kind of a waste of time to watch. Alabama, Western Kentucky, Oregon, Idaho, Ohio State, Akron. I just don't really get a lot out of that. You don't really learn about some of these teams till the third or fourth week of the season. Like, you're not going to learn about Alabama until they go to Madison, Wisconsin. But the takeaways that I do have from those games is, let's start with Alabama. Jalen Milroe, he looks as comfortable as he ever has in the pocket at Alabama. He looked incredible on Saturday. You can tell he's put a lot of work into his deep ball. You can tell that system that Kalen DeBoer has established at Alabama has him feeling very comfortable. I think it's more catered around Jalen Milroe's skill sets and his needs as a quarterback. Last year, you could tell the vision at Alabama was very much ground and pound, modeling themselves kind of after the Baltimore Ravens. Ground and pound, beat you at the rush game. We're going to use Jalen Milroe's mobility to wear you down. It was like that bowling ball offense, going to run right through you. And it worked, but it was also really clunky. I think you can see this Alabama offense get a lot more aerial this year, take a lot more chances downfield. They started to last year, and it worked. You saw Jalen Milroe hit it with Jermaine Burton, with Isaiah Bond a couple times going deep last year. And I think you're really going to see that with Ryan Williams this year, with Jeremy Bernards, with Kendrick Law. You know, I think you're going to see Jalen Milroe hit them deep a lot this year. And so, really happy with what I saw out of Alabama. That was a really compelling case that they made. I know it was Western Kentucky. I know it was Hilltoppers. I know it was Big Red. Big Red is terrifying, by the way. I'm happy I was not at Alabama to see that game because just seeing him on the sidelines would have freaked me the hell out. But Alabama got a very dominant 63-0 win. Let's talk Oregon because their game was a lot closer against Idaho. It took a while for that offense to get like their first drive went right down the field, but they looked very clunky flat out of that game. I'm not going to overreact. It's first game of the season, just like with everybody. Like, there's some teams got to recalibrate expectations with, but some teams, you know, it's just week one. It's weird. You saw Florida State lose to Georgia Tech and Ireland on week 0. You know, it's just week one is it's a really just weird, odd time. Teams trying to find rhythm, but for what was advertised about Oregon, what the perceived value was of that offense, if they want to beat Ohio State, it's got to get a lot better than what we saw on Saturday. Because for what was expected of them this year, it definitely underdelivered. Granted, it was first game of the season. There's a lot more to go, but it very much underdelivered. And you got to see that improve down the line. Ohio State's, man, Jeremiah Smith, that guy is an absolute legend. Another freshman wide receiver, him and Ryan Williams. Where are you getting these guys from? Ryan Williams is still 17 years old. Jeremiah Smith, a freshman, fresh out of high school. and they look like seasoned, like 3-year wide receivers. It's unbelievable. These guys are so far ahead of schedule. Jeremiah Smith brings Ohio State's offense to a completely new level, especially pairing with Emeka Egbuka. It's scary. Ohio State's going to be scary this year. I know a lot of people are questioning Will Howard as their quarterback, saying they look kind of similar to what Kyle McCord was last year, just being like kind of a pocket passer, like not very mobile, doesn't extrapolate much. But I think in the long run he'll be enough to get the job done. At that point, with that running back room, with that wide receiver room, you got to facilitate. And I think that Will Howard has the capabilities to get that done. Let's look ahead to tonight. I made my short earlier about it, my YouTube short. Go check that out. My prediction for Florida State and Boston College. I think you're going to get a very pissed off Florida State team tonight. Whenever a team like Florida State, who's talented and polarizing at the same time, loses, people love to pounce on them, and they love to make it a lot more than what it actually is. You see it with Alabama every year. When they lost to Texas last year, it felt like the sky was falling in. Everybody's taking jabs at them. Everybody's laughing at them. When a team like Ohio State loses, it's the same exact way. Florida State, especially after the controversy at the end of last year, they're a very polarizing team. And when they lose, people like to take jabs at them. But don't get it twisted. This is a very talented football team. This is a very well-coached football team. And when a talented, well-coached football team has an embarrassing loss like Florida State did to Georgia Tech in Ireland, they're going to be pissed off. And they're playing a team in Boston College who's retooled, but still, I just don't think has the roster to compete snap for snap with Florida State. Florida State's playing at home. I think they're absolutely dominating this thing. There's a lot of people betting Boston College plus 16.5. Don't do that. Don't fall for that. Don't fall for the perceived momentum of Florida State. That's one of the biggest mistakes you can make as a betting man. If you bet anything, bet Florida State to cover. I really think they're going to. One final send-off for tonight. I want to give a shout-out to my man Joseph Chapa and Abilene Christian for almost beating Texas Tech this weekend. He was texting me while I was out watching the A&M Notre Dame game, and I was not too dialed into the Abilene Christian game. Trust me. I was very dialed into that Texas A&M Notre Dame game because it was contested. I had picked Texas A&M. I wanted to see how that worked out. But Abilene Christian battled with the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Another kind of shaky first game of the year for Texas Tech. But they battled. Joseph Chapa was electric. He was so excited. Just great game for Abilene Christian, and hopefully they can use that to build off of and give the young man a senior year to remember at Abilene Christian University. Thank you all for watching today. Once again, I appreciate each and every single one of you for your contribution, for dialing in every day, for interacting with me on here, for supporting me. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. You won't regret it. There's a lot of great content that comes out of this channel week in and week out. Exciting stuff I'm going to announce right here, and I'll put this on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, too. We're not going to start with a Zeke Wager Wednesday. It's going to be a Zeke Wager Thursday this week. I'm going to the Rangers-Yankees game for work on Wednesday. It's such an awful job that I have. It's so straining having to go to Ranger games. It's just such a tireless job. No, really appreciate the Cowboys and Legends for the opportunities that they give me and my teammates to participate in such great opportunities and to mingle with each other at events like Rangers games. Really appreciative of that. So that's going on Wednesday night. Thursday night, Zeke and I are going to do Zeke Wager Wednesday on Thursday, leading up to the Chiefs-Ravens game. We're going to be talking about that game. We're also going to be talking about the root of Zeke's fandom of the Miami Dolphins and his disdain for the New York Giants. That's very well documented on Facebook and such. And we're going to be talking about his expectations for the Dolphins this year. But thank you all so much for watching. Also, one more thing I want to finish up on. I always have one more thing to say. We're only going to have 2 prediction videos this week instead of 3. The parents are coming into town this Friday, so I've got to entertain them. We're taking them up to the Star this Friday for a tour. Again, thank you for the very generous folks, for the Cowboys and Legends, for helping me, get that done and helping get them into the Star. Really, really appreciative of that. But we're going up there on Friday, so I got to entertain the parents. So Rangers game, the Star, parents come to town. It's a busy week. I'm doing the best I can here. Got this live show in. I'm going to have several shorts, USC video tomorrow, 2 predictions this week. You'll have to see what they are. And then, of course, shorts towards the end of the week. But thank you all for your supports, as always. And let's keep hustling. Let's keep having a season to remember. Have a great day.